And welcome back to Pokemon Team Videos. Today's Pokemon Team video is brought to you by Mighty Twins Tuck and Ella, who asked the question, what is Pharynx from My Little Pony's Pokemon Team? Now this is a character in the same vein of Oculus from the Young Six, who is a changeling character. So you'd think mostly this character would be, it would still in the same general idea. Oh God, think sentence structure here. God, would in general have the same type of team that Oculus would have, but that's not really the case here. Let's just get into it. First and foremost, being a changeling, obviously a Ditto would have to be on this character's team. It's a changeling their whole shtick is to transform and change into things, so that makes sense. But unlike others, we actually have a few things to go by in terms of what this guy was able to change into. We know that he had a giant insectoid monster form. So I knew I had to put something that was a bug-type Pokemon on there. The question is, what type of bug should I have put on there? I looked at the design, which I don't have here, but it's very like hulking with giant pincers and flying. And there isn't really a bug that fit that to a T. But in terms of the design, I liked Ninjask for this. It looks like it definitely has a similar design to, I was flying a fly. Similar design to what the transformed creature looked like they turned into, albeit not the hulking bulge on the back or anything like that. So that was the first extra mon I put on the team. The other one we saw him turn into was a rock. I'm like, well, there's plenty of rock type Pokemon, but then I'm looking at it and I'm realizing when you actually break down rock type Pokemon, there actually aren't a lot of straight on rocks. I mean, you got the Geodude line. Stonejourner's a rock. And I guess technically Nosepass and Probopass are big rocks, but other than that, though, most other rock-type Pokemon are not rocks in design. They're things that have either rocks in their design, or they have the design of something else, but take on rock attributes. So I'm like, well, this is kind of irritating. And I don't really like Geodude line, Golem, Graveler for this, and I'm not really all that fan of Stonejourner, and Nosepass doesn't really work based on the rock we see him transform into. So I'm like, well, this has a big rock on it that kind of is in the shape of what he turned into. Crustle, and it's got the insect part of it too, because apparently these changelings are very insectoid in appearance naturally. Yeah, so I liked Crustle because it is, honestly, it has a big rock on its back. That's basically it. Big thing of bedrock. And so now we basically get into the mons where I'm like, okay, now I have to think on the team a little bit. How am I going to do this? How am I going to be able to do this? And I basically came down to this conclusion. I had to go a bit more with his personality and a bit more with his appearance. Because it's the My Little Pony world, I did need a horse of some kind, a pony, if you will, and there's no better My Little Pony than the My Little Pony Pokemon of Galarian Ponyta. That is literally a My Little Pony if I have ever seen one. Then we had that. But I also wanted a Mon that represented his overall appearance, particularly the fact that he did not go through what was known as his metamorphosis, if I'm not mistaken, until much later in the series, like the end of Season 7. And that's why he had such a bad attitude and was so angry. So I wanted a Pokemon that had a darker, more edgy design. Even as his transformed form, he still has a bit more of a edgier design compared to some other ponies or other changelings. So I wanted a Pokemon that looked a bit more edgy as opposed to its other form. So I needed a Pokemon that had at least two forms. Okay, let me think on this here. I need something that's probably a dark type because his previous forms were dark, definitely looked on the edgier, eviler side. But, so I'm looking and I'm like, well, let's try this. And I went with Hisuian Samurott. Now, this actually works better in context than what I initially thought, because even though it is a regional evolution, it's actually a regional evolution from the past, which makes sense when you realize that the darker aspects, the more edgier aspects of his design and character came from his younger appearance before he transformed. So the fact that this is a form that you only got in the past makes a lot of sense. And it's a lot edgier. It's got the dark and the red aspects. It is a water dark type. So I liked this aspect of the character. I like this aspect of this Pokemon. Last but not least, I knew I needed a Pokemon to represent his relatively bad attitude. He did not have a good attitude in the beginning of this series when we met him. And they explained why it was. And I'm like, okay, what's a Pokemon I know for a fact does not have a good attitude? And that for me was pretty obvious. It's Gyarados. But Gyarados have bad attitudes naturally, but can be trained and handled and all that. So that actually made sense to me that, this works as a Pokemon that has that bad attitude, but can ultimately overcome it and be a good comrade. So Gyarados for the bad attitude, I went all the way with that. So again, just to recap, Ditto for the transformation aspect, Ninjask and Crustle to represent the transformed forms we see, the rock and the insect. Ponyta because My Little Pony, and he's still got the form, at least, of a pony, normally. Gyarados for the bad attitude, and Hisuian Samurott to represent his original form, which wasn't necessarily was a bit edgier and a bit more evil looking. So that, in my opinion, is Pharynx's Pokemon team. Let me know if you agree with this team or if you disagree, and if you disagree, what would your team for this character look like ultimately? Put that in the comments below. But thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and I'll see you folks next time.